I spent $300,000 for my son's wedding, and the woman I called my daughter-in-law texted me, "You are not welcome." Just like that, my heart broke. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought love and money could create the perfect wedding, but nothing could prepare me for what came next. I stared at the text on my phone for what felt like hours. "Do not come to the wedding?" Those words were like an electric shock straight to my chest. I had spent $300,000 planning what was supposed to be the happiest day of my son's life. Every flower, every seating arrangement, every detail meticulously coordinated. And for what? So that the woman who claimed to love him could tell me I wasn't welcome? I sank into my armchair, phone trembling in my hand, my mind racing. Was this real? Did Daniel know about this? Had he even seen the text? I thought about him, my son, the boy I raised with so much love and sacrifice, the boy who once clung to my hand when the dark of the night scared him, who I held while he cried over scraped knees and broken hearts. And now he was silent. My Daniel had always been the peacemaker, the one to smooth over conflicts, but would he dare stand up for me? I called him immediately. No answer. Texts, calls, emails, nothing. The silence was crushing, each ring that went unanswered deepening the hole in my chest. How could he let this happen? I thought about Victoria, the sweet, charming woman who had captured my son's heart. At first, I had trusted her. I had welcomed her into our family. I had believed she loved Daniel as much as he loved her. But over the past 2 years, little things had started to gnaw at me. The casual exclusions from family dinners, the subtle dismissals during conversations, the rolling eyes when I offered help or advice. I had brushed it off, thinking, maybe she's stressed. Maybe it's nothing. But now, staring at that text, the truth hit me like a freight train. This was not stress. This was contempt. This was a calculated act of disrespect, and I could no longer ignore it. By mid-afternoon, I was pacing my living room, trying to breathe, trying to calm my heart, trying to figure out what to do. I called my best friend Susan. She had always been my sounding board, the voice of reason in the storms of my life. "Susan," I said, voice cracking, "she told me not to come. My own daughter-in-law. After everything, after all I've done, she said I'm not welcome?" Susan was silent for a moment, letting me release my grief and anger. Then she said softly, firmly, "Margaret, you have to understand something. Victoria isn't going to apologize. She's not going to ask for forgiveness. And Daniel, he's caught in the middle, but that doesn't mean you stop standing up for yourself."
Her words were a lifeline. They reminded me that despite the heartbreak, I still had agency. I didn't have to sit silently and let them trample over me. I could act with dignity. I could defend my worth. I spent the night awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every interaction, every slight, every ignored message. I remembered the rehearsal dinner where no one sat with me, where I felt like furniture, invisible, tolerated, but not truly present. I remembered the months of subtle exclusions, of being treated as if I didn't exist in my own son's life. And now, this message, a final brutal confirmation that I had been right to feel the way I did all along. The next morning, I made a decision. I would not be intimidated. I would not beg. I would confront the situation head on. First, I needed to see Victoria's father, Richard. He had always seemed so rational, so composed, so certain that his daughter was in the right. I wanted him to understand the consequences of their behavior. I called his office and asked for a meeting. He agreed, though I could hear the hesitation in his voice. "Margaret, I'm sure we can talk this through," he said. though I suspected he didn't realize how serious this was for me. When I arrived at his home, he greeted me with that polite, practiced smile. "Margaret, to what do I owe the pleasure?" I stood my ground, not allowing his charm to disarm me. "Richard, I came here because we need to talk about what your daughter said to me. The text, the message, you are not welcome. Do you understand how cruel that is? How humiliating? How it makes me feel as a mother?" His smile didn't falter. "Margaret, Victoria is just stressed. She didn't mean it personally. You know how these things go. Planning a wedding is stressful." I laughed bitterly. "Not personal? Richard, do you hear yourself? She sent me a message telling me not to come to my son's wedding. Do you call that not personal? Months of planning, $300,000 spent, and all I get is a text message saying I'm unwanted? That's not stress, that's cruelty." He raised an eyebrow. "You're letting pride cloud your judgment. You could fix this, Margaret. You could forgive, be the bigger person." I shook my head, anger building like a storm inside me. "Fix this? Do you know why I canceled everything? Do you understand why I said no? Because I finally saw the truth. For 2 years, Victoria treated me as if I didn't exist in my own son's life. She humiliated me in subtle ways, ignored me, excluded me, and now she tells me I'm not welcome. And you, Daniel's father, asked me to be the bigger person?"
Richard's face hardened. "You're a bitter woman, Margaret. You've let resentment control you. It's affecting Daniel and it's affecting everyone around you." I took a deep breath, trying to remain composed despite the tears that threatened to spill. Resentment? Richard, do you know what resentment is? Resentment would be staying silent while she treated me like garbage. Resentment would be allowing my dignity to be trampled. No, Richard, I am not bitter. I am a mother protecting herself. And I will not be erased from my son's life to satisfy someone else's ego. He didn't respond. The silence stretched between us, heavy, suffocating, but I felt a strange sense of power. For the first time, I wasn't pleading. I wasn't begging. I was standing tall, defending myself. And it felt right. I returned home that evening feeling both exhausted and strangely energized. The confrontation with Richard had left me drained, but also aware of something I had long forgotten: my own strength. I sat in the quiet of my living room, the shadows of the sunset stretching across the walls, and thought about Daniel, my son, my only son. Would he ever forgive me? Would he understand why I had done what I did? Or had I just destroyed the most important relationship in my life for the sake of my pride? The house felt empty, too quiet, the silence pressing in around me. I tried to distract myself by making tea, but even that small routine felt hollow. I sank into the armchair, staring out the window at the fading light. I kept replaying Richard's words in my head, that accusation that I had acted out of selfishness, that I was ruining my son's life. Selfish? Me? I had given everything for Daniel: my love, my time, my money, my heart. And now, for daring to set a boundary, I was selfish? I remembered the first time Daniel had brought Victoria home. She was charming, beautiful, polite, everything you could hope for in a daughter-in-law. I had welcomed her with open arms, eager to be the mother-in-law every woman wanted to be. I had baked her favorite cakes, listened to her stories, supported her dreams, and slowly, almost imperceptibly, the warmth faded. There were small things at first, passing remarks, a subtle dismissal of my opinions, a tone that implied I was overstepping. I told myself it was nothing, that I was imagining things. But the small things became larger, sharper, and then unbearable. And yet, I did nothing. I swallowed my hurt, laughed off the insults, smiled through the silences. Until the text. Do not come to the wedding. That message was the culmination of months of exclusion and humiliation. And now, I had finally acted. I had canceled everything. I had drawn a line, and it terrified me to think what would come next. 2 nights later, the doorbell rang. My heart jumped. Who could it be? I wasn't expecting anyone. I opened the door to find Susan standing there, concern etched on her face. She stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. "Margaret, you look terrible. When was the last time you slept?" she asked. I shrugged, feeling tears prick my eyes. I haven't slept well in days. Can't stop thinking. What if I ruined everything? She took my hands in hers and sat me down on the sofa, her grip grounding me. "Margaret, listen to me. You did not ruin anything. You defended yourself. You set a boundary. That is not only your right, it's necessary. Daniel will understand in time. You need to forgive yourself before you can worry about him forgiving you." Her words were comforting, but still the guilt gnawed at me. I had spent 2 years providing, nurturing, sacrificing, and now I was left with this void. I missed my son. I needed him. But I also knew that Victoria's influence had driven a wedge between us, and I couldn't let that continue. The next morning, I went about my day mechanically, cleaning, tidying, trying to keep my mind off the constant anxiety. And then the knock came. Daniel. I froze. My heart raced. My son, standing on my doorstep, looking worn, exhausted, but alive. He entered slowly, almost timidly, as if he feared I might push him away. He looked at me with an expression I had not seen in years, vulnerability mixed with confusion, grief, and something else, hope. "Mom," he began, voice small, broken. "Can we talk?" I nodded, stepping aside. He sat across from me on the sofa, the silence between us thick, almost unbearable. My mind raced with what I could say, what I should say, how to bridge the gap that had formed between us. "Daniel, I started, but he held up a hand. "Mom, I don't even know where to start," he said, voice trembling. "I said things, horrible things. I told you I hated you. I didn't mean it. I was scared, angry, confused, but it wasn't true. I have never hated you. You are my mother. You are the most important person in my life." I felt tears sting my eyes, but I held them back. "Then tell me, Daniel. Tell me why you let Victoria treat me like I was nothing. Why you didn't stand up for me." He hung his head, shame written across his face. "I was afraid, Mom. Afraid she would be mad at me. Afraid she would leave me. I wanted peace, and I thought ignoring it would help. But all it did was hurt you. And now, I don't know how to fix it." I reached out and held his hand, feeling the familiar warmth, the comfort of the connection we had almost lost. "Daniel, I didn't cancel the wedding to punish you. I did it because I had to protect myself. You can't let anyone, even someone you love, treat you like a disposable accessory. Love is respect, son. And sometimes saying no is the greatest act of love." He looked at me, eyes wide, searching mine. Do you forgive me, Mom, for not defending you? For letting this happen? I smiled softly, tears falling freely now. Daniel, I forgive you because you are my son. That will never change. What matters now is that you understand that you never let anyone diminish you or me again. Do you understand? He nodded, pulling me into a hug, one that felt like a lifetime of unspoken apologies and love compressed into a single moment. And in that embrace, I felt the first genuine relief I had felt in weeks. Mom, he said, voice cracking, I need to tell you something. Victoria, she left me. The words hit me like a punch to the stomach. What? 2 days ago, she said she couldn't be with someone whose family was so complicated. She said I came from a different place, that it was better to end it now before it got more difficult. My heart ached, not for the wedding, not for the money, but for my son. He had loved her. He had tried so hard, and now he was alone. I held him tighter. Daniel, I am so sorry, I whispered. Don't be sorry, Mom, he said, voice cracking. You were right all along. Victoria never really loved me. She loved an idea of me, someone who would bend to her world. And I was blind. But now I see. And I have you. That's what matters. We cried together, tears mingling, grief and relief and love all at once. For the first time in weeks, I felt like the storm was lifting. And maybe, just maybe, we could begin to heal. The days after Daniel's visit were quiet, but not in a bad way. The house no longer felt empty. It felt alive with the possibility of reconnection. Daniel stayed for several hours, helping me unpack some old boxes I had neglected for months. We laughed as we found childhood mementos, letters I had written to him when he was in school, and photos of vacations long past. Every object, every memory, reminded me of the bond that had never truly been broken, no matter how far Victoria had tried to drive a wedge between us. Still, the financial loss lingered. $300,000 was no small amount. My heart ached at the thought of the money I had spent, not on myself, but on a wedding that would never happen. I had justified every penny at the time, thinking it would bring happiness to my son and his bride. Now, that money was gone, seemingly wasted. Mom, I can't imagine what you must feel like, Daniel said one evening, sitting at the kitchen table with me. You spent everything for me, and I didn't even appreciate it. I was so focused on what I wanted that I didn't see what you were doing for me. I smiled weakly. Daniel, you're being too hard on yourself. You didn't see it because you were caught up in your own excitement and pressure. That's normal. What matters is that you see it now. He looked at me, hesitation in his eyes. Do you regret it? Canceling the wedding, I mean. I thought carefully. My pride, my anger, my hurt, they all surged in my mind. But then I looked at him, my son, finally seeing clearly the man he was becoming, and I knew. No, Daniel, I don't regret it. I made the only choice I could make, to protect myself, and ultimately, to protect you. He nodded slowly, understanding dawning in his expression. I get it now. And Mom, I'm so sorry. Sorry for letting her manipulate me. Sorry for letting her treat you like that. I should have stood up for you. I was blind. Daniel, I said softly, you're learning. That's what matters. I want you to see, truly see, what respect and love mean, not just from others, but also for yourself and your family. We spent the evening talking,
And for the first time in months, it felt like we were reconnecting. We shared memories, laughed at silly moments, and cried when we remembered painful ones. There was no rush to solve everything. There was only the present and the chance to rebuild what had been strained. 2 days later, I received a call from the vineyard coordinator, Jessica. She had been kind and understanding during the wedding debacle. And now she had news. Margaret, I wanted to let you know, Victoria came to the vineyard after the cancellation. She demanded we reactivate everything, offered to pay double, triple, anything. But I explained that legally we could not. It was in your name. Only you could authorize it. She became hysterical. I felt the mix of relief and validation. She had begged, threatened, and even tried to bribe them. And yet I had stood firm. My decision was not only right, but necessary.
Daniel was there when I told him. His face went from surprise to shame to rage. I can't believe she did that. And I saw it happen. And I did nothing, he said, fists clenched. Mom, it's over, isn't it? Yes, Daniel, I said gently. It's over. And now we focus on what matters. Us, our relationship, our lives. We spent the weekend together, cooking, cleaning, and just being present with each other. For the first time in years, there were no demands, no expectations, no controlling presence hovering over our lives. It was just us. During one quiet moment, Daniel confessed something that surprised me. Mom, I realized something important while Victoria was screaming at the vineyard. I saw her from the outside, not the girl I wanted her to be, not the person I was in love with. I saw who she really is, and I got scared. Scared of spending my life with someone like that, and I was ashamed of not seeing it sooner. But I understand now. You saved me, Mom. I hugged him tightly, feeling the warmth of truth and honesty fill the room. I had not acted out of malice or spite. I had acted out of love, tough as it was to make the decision. And now Daniel could see it too. Over the next few weeks, we started rebuilding the rhythm of our lives. Daniel began to reconnect with his hobbies, picking up the guitar again, revisiting the friends he had drifted away from during his relationship with Victoria. He started therapy, acknowledging the patterns of codependency and control that had developed. I watched him grow, not just as a son, but as a man reclaiming his identity. One afternoon, while cooking dinner together, he asked me, Mom, do you ever regret canceling everything? I paused, chopping onions slowly. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't. But I don't regret it, Daniel, not really, because I see now that we avoided something much worse. I saved you from someone who could have made you miserable, and I saved myself from losing my dignity, my self-respect. That is priceless. He nodded, understanding in his eyes. I get it now, and I've learned something important too. Victoria never loved me for who I am. She loved an idea, a version of me that fit her world. And I was desperate to be loved, so I tried to become that person. But now I'm me again, and I want to stay that way. I smiled, feeling a sense of peace wash over me. And that's all I ever wanted, Daniel, for you to be yourself, for us to be honest and real with each other without pretending, without fear, without manipulation.
That evening, we sat down to dinner. No distractions, no phones, no interruptions. Just us. Roast chicken, potatoes, simple comfort food. Laughter, tears, and love. For the first time in months, I felt truly at home in my own house. The next morning, Daniel woke up early, already moving around the kitchen. He was making coffee. "Good morning, Mom," he said with a small smile. "You didn't have to," I replied. "I wanted to. It's the least I can do after everything," he said. We sat together, drinking coffee, talking quietly about life, about small things, about plans for the future. And for the first time, I felt like the mother I had always wanted to be, present, heard, understood, and loved. 3 months had passed since the cancellation, 3 months that had changed everything. Daniel had moved into a smaller apartment, more modest, but his own. Free from Victoria's controlling presence, he began to bloom. His career picked up, friendships were repaired, and he was happier, healthier, and stronger than I had seen him in years. And me? I found myself rediscovering life. Painting classes, book clubs, small trips. I realized that life does not end at 71. Adventures, friendships, dreams, they were all still possible. And for the first time in years, I felt truly alive. Life settled into a new rhythm for Daniel and me. The quiet mornings, the laughter-filled evenings, the shared meals. It was simple, but it was ours. After the chaos of the canceled wedding, the betrayals, and the arguments, this calm felt almost foreign. Yet in its simplicity, there was healing. One afternoon, while Daniel was practicing guitar, I received a message notification on my phone. It was from Victoria. I hesitated, my fingers hovering over the screen. My first instinct was to delete it immediately, but something made me read it. "Daniel, I need to talk. I made mistakes. I was wrong. Please, let's meet and discuss. I want a second chance." I felt a wave of anger and disbelief. After everything, after the humiliation, after the lessons learned, she had the audacity to try again? My heart ached, not for her, but for Daniel. I knew that old habits of trying to please and forgive could tempt him. I showed him the message. His expression was unreadable at first, a mixture of curiosity and caution. "What do you want me to do, Mom?" he asked.
"I want you to do what feels right for you," I said, careful to keep my voice calm. "But think about what happened. Think about how you felt. Think about what you learned about yourself." Daniel read the message again slowly. I could see the memory of the past months, the confusion, the pain, the betrayal flash across his face. He finally put the phone down. I'm not going to respond," he said. "Not because I hate her, not because I want revenge, but because I don't need that in my life. I've learned that peace is more important than pleasing someone who never respected me or my family." I smiled, a deep sense of pride swelling in my chest. "That's right, Daniel. You don't owe her anything, and you certainly don't owe her forgiveness." He nodded. "Mom, I understand now, and I want to say thank you for everything, for canceling the wedding, for protecting me even when I didn't see it. I know now that it was an act of radical love." I reached out, holding his hand. "You're welcome, Daniel. But remember, the lesson is not just about weddings or Victoria. It's about knowing your worth, protecting yourself, and surrounding yourself with people who truly love and respect you." Weeks passed, and life continued to shift in beautiful ways. Daniel started a small routine, visiting me regularly, calling daily, and keeping me updated on work and his new hobbies. He seemed lighter, freer, more confident. I could see the layers of fear, manipulation, and codependency peeling away, revealing the man he had always been beneath the weight of Victoria's control. One evening, Susan called. "Margaret, I have a surprise for you." "Just trust me," she said, mysteriously. I followed her instructions without question. arriving at my living room to find a small gathering of women I had known for years. Former coworkers, friends I hadn't seen in ages, and neighbors who had become distant over time. "Margaret," Susan said warmly, "these women wanted to celebrate you, to honor your courage, your strength, and your choice to defend yourself." They had prepared food, brought wine, and created an atmosphere of joy, laughter, and validation. We spent the night sharing stories, toasting to resilience, and reminding each other of the power of self-respect. "To Margaret," one of them said, raising her glass, "who taught us that it's never too late to stand up for ourselves."
I felt tears welling in my eyes, but this time they were tears of happiness. For the first time in months, I didn't feel the weight of judgment, loss, or regret. I felt supported, understood, and seen, not just as someone's mother or someone's benefactor, but as Margaret, a woman who had chosen herself and reclaimed her dignity. That night, after everyone left, Daniel stayed. We sat quietly in the living room, savoring the calm. "Mom," he said softly, "I never realized how much you sacrificed for me, and I never realized how much you taught me, even when I was too blind to see it." "Daniel," I said, "teaching you was never about money or events. It was about love, boundaries, and respect. And now you understand. That's all I ever wanted." Life continued to change in small but significant ways. Daniel received a promotion at work, one that required relocation. My heart clenched at the thought of him moving away, but I knew it was important for his growth. "Mom, I don't want to leave you," he said. "Daniel," I said gently, "this is your opportunity, your life. You can still come visit and we can stay connected. Distance doesn't diminish love or respect. Go, live, and be the man you're meant to be." He hugged me tightly, promising to visit every weekend and call every day. And when he left, I felt a bittersweet mix of sadness and pride. My son was flourishing, and I had played a role in shaping the man he was becoming. Months passed, and I found myself exploring new passions. Painting, traveling, book clubs, and small adventures brought joy I hadn't realized I was missing. The freedom to be myself, unburdened by manipulation or societal expectations, was intoxicating. One evening, while sitting with a cup of tea, I reflected on everything that had happened. The canceled wedding, the lost money, the conflicts, and the heartbreak all had led me here, to peace, to self-respect, to a renewed relationship with my son, to a life where I was not defined by others' expectations, but by my own choices. I realized that sometimes losing something enormous, a dream, an event, even money, can lead to gaining something far more valuable: dignity, self-respect, and authentic relationships. Daniel called that night. "Mom, I'm thinking of redecorating my new apartment. Could you help me pick out some things this weekend?" "Of course, Daniel, I'd love to," I replied, smiling. As I hung up, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. Life had tested me, challenged me, and even humiliated me, but I had emerged stronger, wiser, and freer. I had learned that true love is not always about pleasing others, but about protecting yourself and those you love from harm, even if it means making painful decisions. And in that moment, I understood fully. Canceling the wedding had not been an act of destruction. It had been an act of creation. Creation of boundaries, self-respect, freedom, and a deeper, more honest connection with my son. For the first time in years, I slept peacefully, knowing that I had chosen myself without guilt, without fear, and without regret. The weeks turned into months, and life began to feel lighter. Daniel settled into his new apartment, smaller than before, but filled with his personality, his music, and his freedom.
Without Victoria controlling every aspect of his life, he was thriving. He had space to breathe, to think, to be himself again. One Saturday morning, Daniel came to visit. He carried a small box of ingredients for a new recipe he wanted to try. "Mom," he said with a shy smile, "I thought we could cook together, just like old times." We spent the morning chopping, mixing, and laughing. Flour dusted our shirts, and the kitchen smelled of garlic and herbs. For the first time in a long while, I felt the weight of tension lift completely. This was what mattered, the simple, unpretentious moments of connection. During a break, Daniel sat back and looked at me thoughtfully. "Mom, do you ever think about the wedding? About what happened?" I paused, letting the silence settle. "Sometimes, but I don't regret it. That wedding, it was never really about us. It was about someone else's perfection, someone else's expectations. I lost money, yes, but I gained so much more. My dignity, my peace, and my son." Daniel nodded, understanding. "I get it now, Mom. I see everything so clearly. She never loved me for who I am. She loved a version of me she wanted, and I let that happen. I let myself get lost trying to fit into her world. But you showed me how to stand up, how to protect myself, and that changed everything." His words filled my chest with pride. He was no longer the anxious, unsure man who had come to me after the wedding cancellation. He was stronger, wiser, and more self-assured. A few days later, I received a call from Jessica, the wedding coordinator. "Margaret, I just wanted to check on you. I know it's been a whirlwind, and I hope you're doing well." I smiled, feeling gratitude for her support during the wedding crisis. "I'm doing better than I've been in years, Jessica. Thank you for everything."
She hesitated, then said softly, "I also wanted to let you know Victoria and her father tried one last time to convince me to help them reverse the cancellation. They were desperate, but I refused. Your decision was right. You acted with integrity, and in the end, you taught them a lesson in respect, whether they realize it or not." I thanked her, feeling a sense of validation wash over me. It wasn't about being right or wrong anymore. It was about standing firm, protecting myself, and reclaiming my life. That evening, Daniel and I took a walk in the park. The air was crisp, leaves rustling under our feet. "Mom," he said thoughtfully, "I think I finally understand something important. Happiness isn't about perfection. It isn't about weddings or money or anyone else's approval. It's about freedom, respect, and being true to yourself." I nodded, smiling. "Exactly, Daniel. Life is too short to live for someone else's expectations, and sometimes losing something big teaches us to gain something bigger." He looked at me, his eyes reflecting a mixture of gratitude and determination. "Mom, I want you to know, because of you, I'm starting therapy. I need to understand how I let myself get trapped in that relationship and how to avoid it in the future." Tears pricked my eyes. "I'm proud of you. That's brave. Facing yourself, learning from the past, and choosing a better path, that's what life is about." In the following weeks, Daniel grew more confident and independent. He reconnected with old friends he had neglected, revisited hobbies he had abandoned, and even started teaching guitar lessons at a local music school.
Watching him flourish was a joy beyond words. One afternoon, while Margaret was arranging flowers in her kitchen, Daniel walked in with a small envelope. He said, "Mom, this came for you." I opened it to find a note from Victoria. "Margaret, I realize now how wrong I was. I misjudged you and I let my pride and expectations ruin everything. I hope you can forgive me someday." I paused, holding the note in my hands. For a brief moment, a flicker of old anger rose, but it faded quickly. I didn't need her apology. Her recognition of wrongdoing didn't change the past or the lessons learned. What mattered was what I had gained: peace, self-respect, and my son's love. I showed the note to Daniel. "See, Mom? Closure at last," he said lightly, but I shook my head. "No, Daniel, closure isn't about her. It's about me, about us, about knowing we chose dignity over manipulation. That's all the closure I need." That night, Margaret visited again. We sat by the fireplace, sipping tea. "Margaret, I've never seen you this happy, this calm. You've reclaimed yourself, and it's inspiring." I smiled. "It feels like freedom, Susan. After 71 years of existing for others, I finally exist for me, and it feels incredible." Susan nodded knowingly. "And the best part? You taught Daniel a lesson he'll carry forever about respect, boundaries, and love that doesn't destroy you." We spent the evening talking, laughing, sharing memories, and dreaming about the future. It was a reminder that life, even in its later years, is full of possibilities, full of opportunities to grow, to heal, and to connect with the people who truly matter. Daniel called the next morning. "Mom, I'm thinking of redecorating my apartment. Can we go shopping together this weekend?" "Of course, Daniel. I'd love that," I replied. And in that moment, I realized something profound. Life had given me a second chance, a chance to enjoy my son, to enjoy my friendships, to explore myself, and to live fully, authentically, and without fear. It wasn't the life I had imagined when I was younger, but it was better, richer, deeper, and more meaningful. The wedding, the money, the humiliation, all of it had been a catalyst for this new chapter. And finally, I understood sometimes losing something huge isn't the end. It's the beginning of something far greater. The following weeks were filled with small yet significant changes. Daniel's apartment started to feel more like home with each visit, each addition reflecting his personality, rather than Victoria's carefully imposed aesthetic. He painted the walls a soft blue, added shelves for his guitar collection, and hung photos of friends and memories from college. Each change was a declaration of independence, and I watched my son proudly reclaim pieces of himself that had been buried under 2 years of compromise and manipulation. One Saturday, he invited me over for brunch. As I walked through the door, the smell of fresh bread and sizzling bacon greeted me. "Mom, help me with the eggs," he called, tossing me a pan and a spatula. The kitchen quickly filled with laughter and chatter, a scene so ordinary, yet so filled with joy that I felt a warmth I hadn't experienced in years. "You know, Mom," he said, pausing as he flipped an omelet, "I think I've been given a second chance too, not just with my independence, but with my own happiness. Victoria, she was a lesson I needed, but I don't want to dwell on her anymore." I nodded, sipping my coffee. Sometimes the hardest lessons lead to the most freedom. You learn to see who she truly was, and you learn to value yourself. That's a gift, Daniel, even if it came through pain.
After brunch, we decided to go for a walk in the park nearby. The air was crisp with the promise of spring, and the trees swayed gently in the breeze. Daniel's stride was confident now, unburdened by the anxiety that had weighed him down before. As we walked, he shared stories of reconnecting with friends he had abandoned during his relationship, how he had started playing the guitar again, and even how he had joined a local community group. His energy and enthusiasm were infectious, and I realized that despite the chaos of the wedding, both of us were emerging stronger than ever. Back at my house that evening, Susan came over with her usual warm smile. She had brought homemade cookies and a bottle of wine. "Margaret, Daniel," she said, "I just wanted to celebrate this new chapter. You both deserve this happiness." We sat together, sharing cookies and laughter, and for a while the past felt like a distant memory. But the next morning, reality reminded me that some wounds take longer to heal. Daniel called, his voice a mixture of hesitation and determination. "Mom, Victoria messaged me again." I took a deep breath. "And what does she want this time?" "She says she regrets everything, that she wants another chance, that she realizes she made a huge mistake," he replied, his jaw tight. I felt a flicker of anger rise, but pushed it down. "Daniel, you already know the truth. What she wants doesn't matter anymore. What matters is your peace and your life." He nodded slowly, understanding, yet hesitant. "I know, but part of me, I guess I want to say something to close the door properly." "Then do it with clarity and dignity, not anger. Let her know your decision and move forward," I advised. Daniel took a deep breath and typed a message, his fingers deliberate. "Victoria, I hope you find the happiness you're looking for, but that will not be with me. Please respect my decision and do not contact me again." He hit send, his expression a mixture of relief and resolve. "How do you feel?" I asked, curious. He said, "Free," simply, with a small smile on his lips. "For the first time in years, I feel free." Over the next few weeks, our routine settled into a comfortable rhythm. Daniel visited almost every day, but not out of obligation, out of desire. We cooked meals together, watched old movies, and even went on short trips to the countryside. The house felt alive again, filled with laughter and warmth.
One evening, as we were preparing dinner, Daniel paused and looked at me thoughtfully. "Mom, do you ever regret canceling the wedding, even for a moment?" I set down the knife I was holding and considered the question. Sometimes I wonder what might have been if I hadn't done it. But then I think about everything I gained, my dignity, your respect, our relationship. And I know I made the right choice. No amount of money, no wedding could have given me that. Daniel nodded, understanding. I feel the same. I was so blind, so desperate to make it work, that I ignored the signs. But now I see clearly. I see my life, my choices, and my family in a way I never did before. The next day, Daniel received exciting news. He had been offered a promotion at work, a chance to lead a new project in another city. His eyes sparkled with both excitement and apprehension. "Mom, it's 3 hours away. I don't want to leave, but it's an incredible opportunity." I took his hands in line. "Daniel, you have to take it. This is your life, your career, your future. We've spent enough time together to know that distance doesn't diminish love or respect. Go, fly, and know I'll always be here, waiting for you." He smiled, a mix of gratitude and relief washing over him. "I promise, Mom, I'll visit every 2 weeks, and you'll come stay with me 1 weekend a month. We'll talk every day. I won't let distance change us." And he kept that promise. Even after moving, Daniel maintained constant contact. We called daily, shared meals virtually, and made plans for weekend visits. The house that once felt empty now pulsed with connection, even across the miles. I began to fill my own days with pursuits I had long neglected. Painting classes, book clubs, short trips. Each day was an opportunity to discover parts of myself I had ignored for decades. Life at 71 had opened a door I never expected to find. A life rich with freedom, creativity, and self-expression. Through it all, one thing became clear. The wedding, the money, the humiliation, it had all been a catalyst, a harsh, painful lesson that led to liberation. We had lost a wedding, yes, but we had gained our lives, our bond, and our happiness. And for the first time in years, I felt truly whole. Life continued to settle into a rhythm that felt natural, almost magical in its simplicity. Daniel's visits became our new tradition. Every weekend he came over, we would cook together, laugh, and talk about anything and everything. There were no pressures, no expectations, no games, just honesty and love. I realized that this was what I had been missing all these years, unfiltered connection with my son. One afternoon, as we were preparing lunch, Daniel turned to me with a serious expression. "Mom, can I ask you something?" "Of course, Daniel, anything." "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I had married Victoria, if you hadn't canceled the wedding?" His voice held a trace of curiosity, but also an edge of caution, as if he feared my answer. I paused, thinking carefully. Sometimes I imagine it, but every time I do, I feel a pang in my chest. I see a version of us, your freedom gone, our relationship strained, both of us trapped in roles we didn't choose. And I realize I made the right decision. That wedding might have been beautiful on the outside, but it would have cost us everything on the inside. Daniel nodded slowly, a shadow of relief passing over his face. "I think I understand now. I was blind, Mom. I thought love was about compromise and pleasing the other person no matter what. But it isn't. Love isn't supposed to diminish you or make you invisible." "Exactly," I said, smiling softly. "And that is something most people learn too late. You learned it at the right time." That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting golden light through the kitchen window, Daniel received another message. This time, it was from Victoria again. My stomach tightened, but I kept silent, letting him handle it himself. He read the message and sighed, a mixture of irritation and determination in his eyes. "Mom, she wants to talk. She says she wants to fix things, that she realizes she made a mistake and that I was the only thing she truly loved." I shook my head gently. "Daniel, you already know the truth. This isn't love, it's manipulation. She's trying to regain control, not to heal or apologize. How do you feel?" He looked at me steady and resolute. Indifferent. I used to feel fear, hope, even guilt when it came to her, but now I just feel free. I know my boundaries, I know my worth, and I won't let her break that. Daniel typed a reply. "Victoria, I hope you find the happiness you seek, but it will not be with me. Please respect my decision and do not contact me again." He hit send, his hands trembling slightly, but with determination. "How does it feel?" "Liberating," he said, a genuine smile spreading across his face. "For the first time in 2 years, I feel like I'm truly living for myself, not for anyone else's expectations." In the days that followed, I noticed a change not just in Daniel, but in myself as well. Without the looming shadow of Victoria and the wedding fiasco, I could breathe, think, and exist in my own right. I started taking long walks in the mornings, painting in the afternoons, and even joined a local community theater group. Each new activity reminded me that life did not end at 71, that it could begin again, richer and fuller, if only we had the courage to embrace it. One Saturday evening, Susan came over with her usual warmth. "Margaret, I've got a surprise for you," she said, her eyes sparkling. "I've invited some old friends, women you haven't seen in decades. I want us to celebrate you, the real you, the woman who stood up for herself." I laughed, a little nervous.
Are you sure they'll come? Absolutely. They all adore you, she replied. That night, my living room was filled with laughter, conversation, and the smell of home-cooked food. Women I had worked with years ago, friends I had lost touch with, and even neighbors I rarely spoke to were all there, celebrating life, resilience, and friendship. It was a different kind of wedding celebration, one without pomp, money, or stress, but it was more meaningful than anything Victoria's perfect day could have offered. At one point, Betty, the florist, raised her glass to Margaret, who reminded us that dignity and self-respect are worth more than any wedding, any money, any expectations. To a woman who taught us that it's never too late to defend yourself. Everyone cheered and clinked glasses, and I felt a wave of joy that no amount of money could buy. I realized that my worth was not measured by a wedding, by Victoria's approval, or even by the sacrifices I made. My worth was inherent. I had discovered it, nurtured it, and it was now radiating in every interaction, every choice I made. Daniel watched quietly, smiling. "Mom, I think this is the happiest I've seen you in years," he said softly. I looked around at the faces of my friends, at the warmth of the room, and nodded. Yes, Daniel, I am happy. Not because of a wedding, not because of money, but because I chose myself. I reclaimed my life, and in doing so, I found peace, friendship, and joy I never knew was possible.
That night, after everyone had left, Daniel and I sat together in the living room, talking quietly about our days, our plans, and our dreams. For the first time in years, I felt unburdened. There were no expectations, no manipulations, just honest love between mother and son. Weeks passed, and life continued to flourish. Daniel thrived in his new job, the promotion giving him both responsibility and independence. He found friends who supported him, hobbies that brought him joy, and a life free from Victoria's influence. I continued exploring my own passions, traveling, painting, and enjoying the company of friends who reminded me that age was just a number and life was always capable of renewal. And then, one quiet evening, as we were having tea on the porch, Daniel turned to me. "Mom, do you ever regret canceling the wedding?" I smiled softly, thinking of the chaos, the heartbreak, the liberation. No, Daniel, not for a second. That decision was the catalyst for everything we have now. It was painful, yes, but necessary. We lost a wedding, but we gained so much more. Our relationship, our peace, our freedom. I wouldn't trade that for anything. He nodded, understanding fully now. "Me neither, Mom. Me neither." And in that moment, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting warm light over our home, I realized something profound. Life was not measured by the events we lose or the money we spend, but by the love, respect, and authenticity we cultivate. I had been erased from a wedding, undervalued by a daughter-in-law, and challenged by my own fears. But through it all, I had discovered the strength to stand, the courage to say no, and the wisdom to prioritize what truly mattered. For the first time in decades, I felt complete. Life had settled into a rhythm that felt natural, almost like the world was finally aligned the way it was supposed to be. Daniel thrived in his new apartment and his promotion, and I flourished alongside him. The house felt quieter without the chaos of wedding planning and the lingering tension of Victoria's presence. But that quiet was peaceful, not empty. It was a blank canvas for a life rebuilt with intention, love, and respect. One afternoon, while Daniel was preparing lunch, he paused and looked at me. "Mom,
Do you ever think about what we lost? About the wedding? About Victoria? I smiled gently, pouring tea into our cups. Sometimes, yes, but I no longer see it as a loss. We didn't just cancel a wedding, we canceled the illusion of what we thought life should be. In doing that, we made room for truth, honesty, and freedom, and those are things money can't buy.
Daniel nodded, his eyes thoughtful. I understand now. I can see the difference between love that nurtures and love that suffocates. I spent 2 years trying to please someone who never really loved me for who I am, and I didn't even realize it until everything fell apart. But now I do, and I'm free. That evening, Susan came over once again, her usual bright smile lighting up the room. "I think it's time we celebrate," she said. "Not a wedding, not a grand event, but a celebration of resilience, family, and new beginnings." We spent the evening cooking together, laughing and sharing stories from years past. Friends joined us, neighbors dropped by, and slowly the house filled with warmth, joy, and life. It was a celebration unlike any other, small, intimate, and deeply meaningful. No flowers imported from Thailand, no extravagant catering, no demands or expectations, just people who loved and respected each other. Daniel looked around, smiling softly. "Mom, I think this is what happiness really is. Not grand events, not perfection, just people who care about each other and the freedom to be ourselves." I nodded, feeling the tears prick my eyes. "Yes, Daniel, that is everything. That is what I've been searching for all these years." Weeks passed and our life continued to flourish. Daniel thrived at his new job, making meaningful connections and finally enjoying the autonomy he had lacked for so long. He picked up his guitar again, reconnected with friends, and started therapy to heal the emotional wounds left by Victoria and the manipulations that had once clouded his judgment. One quiet evening, Daniel turned to me with a smile. "Mom, do you remember that message Victoria sent after the wedding was canceled?" I nodded, the memory still vivid. "Yes, do not come to the wedding. I'll never forget those words." Daniel laughed softly, shaking his head. "She thought she could control us, scare us, manipulate us, but all she did was show us how strong we really are, how much we can endure and still choose ourselves." I smiled, feeling the weight of those months lift completely from my shoulders. For the first time in years, I felt free, truly free. Free from expectations, free from manipulation, free from the invisible chains that had bound me for so long.